I'm Re-Up Alex.
It's BMO.
Kaelin Ellis.
This is the Re-Up Podcast. And yeah, we are really excited to have Kaelin here. He's been to DC a few times before, but this is a really special time, headlining at Flash Nightclub, one of my favorite spots. He is a multi-talented instrumentalist, producer, just an artist in general, I would say. And we're going to talk about some samples, some stories behind his music, where he comes from, and where he's going in the future.
251 forever, baby.
Yes, sir.
Have you been out in DC?
All the time.
What's it like?
I'm going out tonight.
Where you going? You going
Flash.
to
Flash Nightclub. That's where Kaelin Ellis is actually playing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be cool. They usually do a lot of, that venue specifically does a lot of like more techno house stuff. But my friend group who likes a little heavier of music convinced them to allow us of, our, kind of music, which again, derives a little bit more from hip hop. And it's gotten to the point where the same promoters are booking people like Kaelin Ellis, which he's a very diverse beat maker. One of those kinds of people where you can't really put a genre on a lot of his music. I listened to his latest album and his first album today. Pretty different, honestly. And he takes a lot of live instrumental elements. Like a question I'm really excited to ask him is like whether he prefers samples, from online, or crate digging, or making the samples, because he plays drums. So it was someone who's versed in those instruments. You would wonder, like, and I see on his Instagram he's doing a lot of like the MPC pad and sampling stuff. But it's like, for example, a lot of times when someone wants to clear a sample, they can't. They just have somebody make a cover of it. Right. Bad Not Good has done that plenty of times for a bunch of producers. I know that's a big thing.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to All Falls Down.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm interested to talk to him. Of course, I listened to parts of the album about 20 minutes ago. Pretty good.
It's better that way sometimes.
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. But no, let me know how that nightlife experience is. The last time I was truly out in DC on some nightlife shift was when I was producing the night festival for the Funk Parade here. And I had a different relationship with owners and producers at different establishments. And now those establishments don't even exist anymore. Like the places I would go to listen to live music on U Street, one of them exists, and that's technically Bohemian Caverns, but they don't even do it like they used to.
That's the Harlow.
Yeah, it's the Harlow now.
Harlow Lounge.
They treat live music like a fucking smoker's lounge. Like, just set up in the corner and be quiet while people use like your visual aesthetic as their Instagram shit. It blows my mind. So yeah, to answer your original question about like this abundance of technology and the lack of artistry, at least in my perspective, what happens when you get a whole bunch of DJs who are just doing a whole bunch of events, like you have no diversification. It looks a little dead to me. Like,
well, the promoters and the people behind it, I will say I don't think I've ever seen more promoters and collectives in the DMV area ever. Right. And, I'm born and raised in Nova. I left, I came back. So
why do you think that is? Let me get you in trouble with the promoters. Why do you think there's more promoters?
I know exactly why. Yeah. Because people got fed up of there not being fun things to do that they specifically liked. And what my friend told me once, my homie Trevor told me, if you can't find what you're looking for, just like create it.
Yeah, true.
That's why we're right now, right?
On so many levels.
Yeah.
On so many levels, man.
So I think that's why. Back 10 years ago, there was an extreme lack of diverse events or just different things. I wouldn't say diverse, different things. Especially when it comes to Northern Virginia, your classic, if you were to go to a bar in Arlington, which you shouldn't, you're going to find top 40 being spun at, you know, places with the sticky floors. And then you're also going to find the dad cover band at the top of the bar with the sticky floors.
Yellow Tie Guys. Man.
Yeah. So, you know, that happens for years and years on end. Eventually, like we've said before, cool people do live in DC. People with cool ideas do live in the DMV area, and they might meet some of these more, I wouldn't say, I'm not even gonna say that word, more bland.
Alex don't want to piss off his demographic. He was about to say whitewashed,
whitewash. I would say. Well, I think a lot of people can be bland. I don't want to, you know, I mean, like, all different types of people can be.
All
bland.
people can be bland.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We were once bland, I'm sure, unless you came out of, you know, your mother just bursting
sauced up, that seems to be the case. I don't know. I don't know, man. You see these leopard print shorts I got on, man? Come on. With the sauce, I mean, that's you make a point. I like your analysis on why you think more promoters are being birthed right now. It's a very optimistic point of view.
Yeah.
I just think people don't have talent. And I'm one of those talentless fucks. Well, you know, it's crazy I say that, but like I say that for a different reason. I think there's a large crop of promoters and producers who are specifically doing these DJ-centric events right now because it's easy, because it's popular, and because they're popular. And it takes little skill to actually get a good one off, especially if you got like a dope DJ like Kid Marvel. Or
true. I mean, Kid Marvel puts in work though. When I see him in a lot of shows, he's like helping, you know, people. He's kind of like almost liaisoning in a way. He is the party, and I think that comes from like years and years of him being a professional DJ from like the time that I met him in like probably 2009, 2010.
I mean, you know, the conversation we had last time was about certain DJs wanting to be paid for what we would consider the grind, for the hustle. But yeah, what happens is you get all of these DJs, and there's no disrespect to the DJs, but you get all of these DJs who are playing other people's music. They're using the popularity of other people to create popularity for themselves. And then you have individuals who collect those people who are popular to represent them into the public. And it's interesting. It's such a wonderful loop that people now, at least to what you were saying now, feel like have to create events that are for their interests. And the events that I'm seeing are the events that were created that led me to become an event creator. I became an event creator because I was tired of these electric-centric, we just standing around doing nothing type of events. And that seems to be like a renaissance of those. People are coming up. I mean, I love it. Use your creativity, creativity to create marketing around a certain topic, but like to get back to the point of the non-diverse event, that's what I see when I'm out in DC. It's just like, oh, we're back to doing this thing. Yeah.
I think something that I'm seeing, or I was actually remembering like a similarity of, that I see a lot of electronic events is like, you know, these things are underground, right? So you feel like there's a lot of people who are going to go and, you know, go to these shows, but it is still underground. It's a niche. So like a lot of them will have vendors at these shows. They have the vendors kind of help them with the promotion and, you know, making that cool. They'll have like live painters, things like that. Like if you don't have those two things and you're doing one of these shows, like, you know, people have expectations. High fidelity sound systems.
That's right.
Huge deal. So we do have to do a little extra on this whole underground scene that, you know, I would say I'm a part of. But there are people just kind of, you know, slapping the cookie cutter like, oh, we're going to do a Drake versus Kendrick Lamar night. Oh, my God.
I mean, that's what the people want, right?
That's what the people want, man.
But then that gets you into the conversation of, I've actually had a couple of bump-ins with my team about this. I don't give a fuck what my demographic wants.
Okay.
I don't. I know that the old adage was like audience before content. right? Think about your audience, think about how they need things presented to them, and then create content on that. But as the internet gets older, I think that's actually dumb.
Okay. I mean, I agree. I care more so about like cultivating the audience and like retaining the audience, but I don't care who the audience is.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I hear, like, if we present, is that my man's? If we present,
oh yeah,
is it him?
Yeah. It is.
Okay. Yeah. If we present, and I'd love to get his take on this, because I feel like that's how artists do. When, like, this is a terrible example. This is actually the first person that came to mind. When Britney Spears steps into the studio, do you really think she, like, Britney Spears is a bad example.
Yeah, pick another person.
When Prince steps into the studio, do you really think Prince gave a fuck about what Customer 2000 thinks about his chord choice?
No, not at all.
No, come on in, brother. Actually,
yeah,
because I wanna get your opinion on this. You're walking in at a good time. What's up, brother?
How you doing? How you living?
Nice to meet you, Gabe. Alex, good to meet you. Make sure we still record this shit. I got a question.
Welcome to the DMV. We ain't really in DC right now, but you know, we're adjacent.
Yeah, Jason likes shit. We gotta be careful with our work.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me ask you this question, Kaelin. We're gonna jump right into it, right? So we're having a conversation right now. The old adage used to be audience before content, which means you consider your demographic, what they want, and then you create to their needs. But I think that's stupid. I think it's been stupid. Okay. And the question I asked Alex, and I want to get your opinion on this: do you think Prince walked into the studio and was like, I wonder what my customers want in chord progressions, and then create chord progressions? Or was Prince like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what the people gonna get?
His impact on everything. And one thing that I've learned is he's like the originator behind a lot of things.
Right.
So to go off the premise that he went in the studio and created what he wanted, and what he wanted is what people ended up getting. That's like the world of Prince.
Right.
And what's so fascinating about it is, I think what made people gravitate to Prince so much is because of the fact that he did so many different things.
Yeah.
And he was like, let me not just do so many things, I'm going to do it for a reason.
Yeah.
And so that whole
Purpose.
like 90s period where he didn't even go by his own name, like he was like, I'm just son.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that sentiment, honestly.
Yeah. Is that how you approach music?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been recently doing a lot of like reconfiguring of how my mind works with this stuff. And because like I've been doing things without realizing like what it is doing.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I learned, and actually, and I'm going to try and explain this in the best way I can. There is this thing where I was getting opportunities to do placements, and it was just like sync stuff, like commercial stuff. And I recognized every time that I was trying to imitate somebody else, I wouldn't get a placement. But when I started doing what was like true to me internally, the result was much more quicker. People resonated with it much more faster. And even recently, I just got like a sync placement off of like an old record I did 2 years ago with like Microsoft. And it was like, I made this track like 3 years ago, and that's what they want.
Right.
But it was like at that moment, that was what was true and honest to me. So,
okay, I hear what you're saying. If you had gone in thinking like, let me make this for Microsoft, Microsoft would have never found you.
That makes sense. I mean, as someone who, as someone who also pitches lots of songs for sync, usually I mean, and it sucks because a lot of people work with me and they're like, hey, you know, sprinkle a little bit of those cookie cutter songs in there. And I do, but I'm also like the left field guy. Like I will give them what they said that they wanted, but not really. Like it's actually like this kind of left field like offshoot of it. Because I mean, when it comes down to it, I think that those like ear candy tones and those things that are gonna stick out are gonna get people to purchase products or resonate with it, like a brand at the end of the day. And it's a little more timeless, right?
Yeah. I even and it's actually really unique. You mentioned this, the more cookie cut, like not cookie cutter, but the ear candy stuff. I ended up making a beat back in like 2019, and I think I had the opportunity to do K-pop, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the guys never did a K-pop camp before. They were like, just bring a bunch of ideas. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, this is how K-pop, like this is how they make K-pop music, right?
Yeah.
But then I had a completely left field record that sounded nothing like K-pop. It sounded more like a Michael Jackson, kind of like, if he was here now, this is what he would probably be making.
Right.
And so I remember I played all the ideas for the execs, but then I got to that one idea and they were like, out of everything you just played me, make sure you work on that one.
Yeah.
That one with the really weird, whatever that was, that's what we want. And they ended up picking the song.
Yeah.
The name of the record is Exo Jekyll.
Okay.
And it sounds like Michael Jackson. It's
Exo Jekyll.
Yeah, Jekyll. Yeah. Like Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah,
I got you.
But yeah,
cool. Well, yeah, that can tie into one of my questions. So I listened to, Patience, which is an older project, like your first. And then, I went back or to not skip over things, really ingested it, took it in. It seemed like some of the songs were like a little more electronic leaning and they still had that cool hip hop feel. But my question is like, You Are Here start is a lot different. I see that you do a lot of like beat making, you're a producer, but you're also like an artist and musician, not to completely separate the two.
Yeah.
But, I've seen you play drums, things like that. So what is kind of like the journey that you took from this thing that seems a little more electronic to now when it seems like you're implementing more of, you're almost composing is what your latest project kind of gave me the feel of?
Well, it's funny you mention that because that was my intention.
Yeah.
I wanted to go from just like making, because beforehand I was just making all these crazy beats, right? And I was like, how can I sequence all these beats to get like a different mixed result? Because I always like to go off of like the human element of like how do people respond to the music I make. But with something like You Are Here Start, I think You Are Here Start was a little bit bigger. I had a bunch of music that was made the exact same time that I did my last album, The Funk Will Prevail. And right after, I think I did like majority of the records, I did like maybe 4 or 5 of those records from that album. I ended up going to LA for like a month. And all those songs that I did in LA back in 2021, those are the songs that You Are Here Start.
Oh, okay,
is.
cool.
And so I remember my team came to me at the beginning of last year and they were like, yo, man, what are you doing with these songs? Is anybody going to do it? It was like, let me make sure to hit up everybody. And they're like, we have no plans for any of this music.
Yeah.
So it was about 18 songs. I had to cut down 18 to 10.
It's hard to do.
And the craziest part is I was like, can I like get the okay to get these verses? Because one thing I didn't realize is that the song Ain't You Mad had no clue that Kenny Mason and Buddy had like recorded a whole like 2 verses to the song. I only knew Guapdad's hook.
Yeah.
But he was like, oh no, I got them on a record too. And it took me a year to like get back in touch with Guapdad. So I didn't even get a chance to mix that record till like January of this year.
Wow.
So it was a hot minute before I could like really gauge what all that music from 3 years ago. And then trying to revisit music from 3 years ago was like, I'm not the same person I was.
Yeah, exactly.
I moved past the start already.
Yeah. So I feel like with something like You Are Here Start, it's like a tastemaker from like all those other records that I did previously. Like the electronic, I have a little bit of electronic in You Are Here Start, but then it's majority like musicianship and live and instrumentation, which that's just what I grew up on. So.
Yeah. So I got a question. Of course. Of course I got a question.
Yeah.
Alex actually said a second ago, but there is a difference between composition and beat making.
Yeah.
I think I have an idea, but can you illuminate us?
Well, like, okay, so everything is expanded on beyond just beat making. So originally I used to think like, all right, I need to have some knocking drums, crazy melody or some chords, and then like that what the heck factor in the middle of it. And so back then all I would focus on is just making a loop and having that loop play over and over and over and over again.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now what is different is I've understood the power of words lately. And I didn't realize like how incredible all my homies and all these people I've been working with lately, how incredible their songwriting is.
Yeah.
And so I'm realizing like they can articulate these words to create not just a feeling, but a world,
The whole world. That's right.
And so composing
They talk about it.
the words with the music, it creates this world. And the music is supposed to accompany that.
Right.
Almost like church, gospel music, the preacher's preaching and the pianist is playing the music behind them. It's like that supports what the person is trying to say.
Right.
And if you can get the music to match what someone is saying and both worlds come together, you got like a pretty solid body of work that could be more than just a beat made, but a composition for a story.
And you talk about including live instrumentation, and going beyond the loop. It sounds like you're going into more like traditional song structure, especially if you bring in like gospel.
Yeah.
Like we got the verse, we got the chorus, we got the shout section, we got the bridge, and then we bring it back to the beginning. Is that something you're playing with as a somebody transitioning into composerhood, if you will?
Yeah. I actually, so what's funny is I feel like I've touched on it a little bit for a while.
Yeah.
So I mentioned placements earlier, and one of the things about placements, I think I ended up doing one for like Mercedes.
Okay.
And the way they wanted me to like structure the sounds was like ultimately coming to this really big drop at the very end.
Yeah.
And that was really what the whole thing was. It was like, all right, you introducing these sounds, you're taking it out, then there's a space, and you throw it back in, space, and then boom, big drop, and the song is over.
Yeah.
And so realizing music has this kind of wave that does that. It's like you got the verse, the hook.
Right.
And then it comes back down to the verse. Maybe you got some extra elements, but it's really supposed to lay a foundation for someone's world to be created.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you play, right?
Yeah.
What do you play?
I play drums, keys, anything I can lay my hands on, bass. I'm not great at guitar, but I will sit down and force these fingers to play something.
What did you play first?
I played drums first.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
since I was 2. My dad.
2?
Yeah, there's an
Wow.
old VHS footage of my
there
dad. my dad. I remember my dad when I was younger. He used to just take a VHS camera and just like record me and him because he played keys, and he would just put the camera in the corner of the room and just have me just play. And he did that for like 10 years straight. And
Damn.
when he stopped recording with the VHS camera, I just stayed in my room playing drums all the time.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Incredible, man.
That's
Do you
amazing.
feel like the keys is such a interesting instrument because it can be both percussive, it can be chords, it can be melody, it can be solo. Do you feel like that affects like your ability to play, affects your ability to develop melody in different compositions, if you will?
Yeah, I actually, it allowed me to understand other things more. So, for instance, when I was playing the drums and I ended up taking piano class in high school, I remember like looking at the piano like, how the heck do you take these notes and make it sound like it makes sense?
Yeah.
Like how?
Of course, yeah.
How did Beethoven do this?
Yeah, I think the same thing. Yeah, it's crazy.
It didn't make any sense until I think there was one particular day that I think my piano teacher said the way the piano is set up, it's meant to mimic the shape of your hand. So when you look at your thumb, your pinky, and the 3 fingers here, you look at the keyboard, there's black keys, 1, 2, 3, and you got the 2.
Yep.
That literally is meant to map your hands. And so I remember my dad would play this chord, playing those 3 black keys that simultaneously go back and forth. I remember he would just hit bomb, and he would do it every like church service. And what's funny is he would do it and he could recognize that like there were notes in between his fingers. Yeah. And if he could just slide one finger down, it would create a chord. And I was like, And I remember I was in piano class and I had like a whole like epiphany. I'm like, oh, this is, I don't even know what this chord is, but that's how it happens. That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, chords are just patterns. It's like when you communicate and your words create a sentence, those chords together create a progression.
Yeah.
And when I started playing drums and seeing that, like, okay, the beat creates the pocket, then the chords create the progression. Then it all of that comes together. I'm like, it's all these different pieces that are supposed to fit.
Yeah.
So that's hope that makes sense.
No, I played the sax. I understand what you're saying. I remember several musical epiphanies happening, but no more than when I was playing piano, like playing chords and sliding notes between diminished and like minors and majors and listening to songs. I remember I was just trying to figure out my man's song and ended up figuring out how to play Cranes in the Sky by Solange. Just like, oh, okay, these are all connected patterns.
Yeah.
I love what you say about that. Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. That's amazing that you explained how these songs actually come together, because a lot of people who, you know, are making songs just kind of think that it's like, you know, somebody thinks of a few lyrics and they kind of, you know, lay a beat over it. So I guess there's two ways you could do that, or you can take it the more composition route, like you explained. So when it comes to like kind of back to beat making, are you like, do you have a preferred way of getting these sounds? Is it making them from scratch, or is it finding them online on a library, or is it crate digging and actually like sampling different things like that?
So before I got deeper into the world of sampling, I used to only have like, and it's actually funny now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't think I've like thought about it from this perspective. I've been doing a lot of mental digging lately.
No, it's good.
I remember my dad would buy these like Sony Acid Music Studio loop CDs, and back then they used to like drop like sound packs on a CD.
Oh, okay.
Full you'll get like a hip hop CD style series, techno. I don't even I wish people said techno more. That's the house, like classic house. Yeah, it was all these different sound packs that were like sitting on CDs, and so I only had like 5 of them, and all of them had like these different styles of hip hop, and they ranged from like underground house to New York grimy kind of samples, and then the southern kind of bass style. And so all these CDs, that's all I had. I didn't know about YouTube. I would only just stay with those CDs. Nice. And I think maybe until 2008, my dad was like, you should upload this online. I'm like, where should I upload it? And he was like, this thing called YouTube. Yeah. I'm like, okay, let me try some stuff. So I started taking those beats and just going straight to YouTube. And I didn't even realize at that time, YouTube was in its infancy stages of like the community posting like, yo, I got the MPC in my crib. Let me go ahead and share with y'all what I did. And then Booney Mayfield popped up at the same time. Curtis King, another great producer, friend of mine. They were all like early YouTube stages. And I didn't know that samples were being uploaded, beats were being uploaded. I started to discover Adult Swim music. That was when it started to like, and so I'm like, all right, let me see if I could find where, you know, people are taking these sounds from, because I'm hearing things like Flying Lotus and it's not making any sense. How is he getting these sounds?
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't know there's like a history of guys like finding samples, and then they'll probably go on like a forum online and be like, yo, what was that sample that Dilla used on that one record? And when I found out about Dilla, it was just kind of like snowball from there. And so it started from like, I only had this little bit of access to sounds, and then YouTube happened. I had way more access, but the same kind of like thing applied. Like once I found what I wanted, I only used those sounds for like a period of time. And I didn't use anything else. And so a lot of my style came from me collecting the same snares, kicks, hi-hats. The Flying Lotus had a little weird blip sound. I'd probably just save it in my folder. I'd record it. Boom.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in my track that I'm using. And as time went on, those little collected pieces created the sounds that I use.
Right.
Damn, that's cool.
That is cool. Who's the young kid? Young Chris.
Young Chris, yeah.
We were talking to Young Chris. Was that last week?
Yeah, it was last week. Yeah.
We're talking to Young Chris. There's something you said a second ago that I want to touch back on. Talking to Young Chris. So Young Chris says, when you take my vocals, when you sample my vocals, that's stealing. What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna say it the best way Flylo said it. I can sample you. I'm gonna sample everybody. I don't care if it's your stuff. I'm sampling it. I'm sorry. Yeah, but it's not necessarily from. And maybe because I think about it a little differently. Like
talk about it.
I come from the space of you learn something by creating a language. And so some like sound packs, right? A sound pack is just another form of like a language. So if someone were to be like, yo, I got a Jay Dilla sound pack, someone had to go to Jay Dilla's records and like rip the snares and kick drums off of his beats. Right. But little do people know that his snares and his kicks were sitting on an MPC 1995 and like, I want that snare from this record. I'm going to chop that up and I'm going to use this. It could be a form of stealing. I see that, but also at the same time, it's a matter of what you do with it. So oftentimes I think the sampling nowadays can get really lazy.
Talk about it.
And I feel like music wasn't really intended on being like a lazy factor. It's like you're creating a world for someone's language to be communicated. Right. And it took for someone like Flying Lotus to take all of those crazy records to put it together for me to even discover like, I want that weird factor.
I hear what you're saying.
Too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny how much Flying Lotus comes up in this podcast. It's like probably the second, third time.
It's not a surprise. But I'm not... I appreciate what you said just now. Because it also seems to be the same argument around like AI. Right? Like, okay. If you're just using AI to copy and then create another, like there was a whole era like 2017, 2020 when Bad Boy was producing basically just remixes of the old records with young King Combs on them, right? Yeah. But so there's like that lazy factor. The same thing happens with AI. If I can just take a copy of what somebody else created and just represent it, then it could be mine, right? Yeah. But what you're saying is the real artistry here is I could take your voice and I can create a completely different universe.
Yeah.
I love that.
Dilla was like one of the, and even before Dilla, I think that technique of taking something and repurposing it for something you would have never expected it to do is that, for example, Dilla Donuts. Yeah, exactly. His whole project is more than just him sampling records. He's actually communicating with the sample, which is a little bit next level because it's like, I don't know many people to take like a chopped sample and be like, this is a factory, it can hurt. Like he's chopping up the sample to make it say that. But when you play the sample, it don't say that at all.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And so,
this is 9 different parts of the song.
And so I have a theory right now. And I've currently been putting together like a short ebook on AI, and I think where its place is, because a lot of people have been talking about like, oh, AI is a hoax. What I think is, and this is just a theory that I have, the Great Reset when 2020 happened, we all were doing the same thing over and over and over again. The same songs, the same kind of laziness kind of came out over and over again. When the universe stops people from doing the same thing over and over again, you obviously need to go a different direction.
That's right.
Yes.
And so I felt when AI first came out, it was actually 2020 when I first discovered it.
Really?
And OpenAI had a joint called Jukebox. You could look this up. It's a free AI generator that they actually had all these rendered songs off of pre-existing songs like Kanye, Stevie Wonder, Beatles. But what they did was they just allowed you to type in what you wanted and it created it. It might have taken a little bit longer because the technology wasn't developed, but it allowed you to be able to create something. You could take pre-existing audio and extend it.
That's crazy.
Augmentation.
Yeah, that's insane.
And so that was back in 2020. I actually used a couple of these joints for...
Nigga, what? Wait, hold on.
Yeah, it's
2020.
It's pretty. I've been learning about this thing for the last like 4 years, but watching it develop and these companies using it, it's a whole nother thing. But augmentation is what it is. Right. And I think because we've had the technology to sample these records, and not only sample it, but have the machine mimic to a degree what a human would do, there's now a machine that can mimic what a human can do.
Yeah.
And AI is a mimic.
Yeah.
You take language and you tell it, can you create a pattern like this with this information, these letters, these communications, these samples, these songs? I want something like this. Can you do it? And it'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
Result. And so I've been learning about how like you can take something like AI and utilize it to extend an already an existing idea.
Right.
So let's say you play sax and you're like, I want this sax to sound like it's played with neo soul and the Philharmonic Orchestra. You now can do that.
Very true.
And so how that happens is because your communication, your words create worlds.
Right.
And I think the more that us as creators recognize that our words, the environment we create can do that, I think we can not only just change the way music sounds, but we could like go beyond where our predecessors laid the foundation. I've always been feeling like the OGs were like, I gave you the 251.
Yeah.
Go crazier with
go
it.
to work. Yeah. Oh my God. Very true.
You know? So that's just my theory.
The 251 is hilarious.
So then I got you know what I got to ask him.
Yeah, go for
I
it.
got to ask you, what's your relationship with Luther Vandross?
Oh, okay. It's a combination of Luther, Shaka Khan,
Okay.
and I want to say Stevie Wonder. Those three I listened to a lot in college. And a lot of my buddies, we would stay up mad late taking those records and jamming with them until our neighbors like got really pissed off.
Really?
Yeah, more Shaka Khan than anything.
Of course.
But yeah, Luther. I learned more about Luther because Dilla chopped up Luther, and I was like, "There's more music like this."
Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
yeah, that's my relationship.
That's your relation. I asked that question to all of our guests because Alex and I, for these 2 seasons, we've been having a silent debate.
Okay.
A silent debate about the importance of new melody in music. We've talked to a couple of electronic artists, and one artist straight up told us is like, "Oh, there is no more new melody. All the best melodies have been made. I'm just going to sample those and keep it moving." But right now, in front of me, I have not only a master sampler, but also an instrumentalist who has a relationship with Luther Vandross. So I asked you that question to figure out, are you trying to make more melodies, or are you satisfied with the melodies that have existed since Luther Vandross?
I want to say, as a creator, the moment that you stop learning, you stay there. And something I'm recognizing about the words creating your worlds, if you stop learning words, then you won't create worlds. And so something that actually hit me like the last 2 weeks, because the album came out and I'm trying to like get some newer inspo, right? And I was like, man, what's something that's like completely left field that I haven't seen anybody do? And there's actually this bass player named Bubby Lewis.
Okay.
Plays for Lupe Lupe Fiasco. Of
course.
Yeah.
And I remember he recorded himself. He goes and plays drums at his not drums. He plays bass at his church.
Okay.
And he had just a small clip. I'll never forget. This man was playing a classic like gospel shout bump, but in the middle of it, he uses like an Egyptian scale.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Wow.
He used an Egyptian scale, a completely left field melody you would never expect to hear in a church service.
Yeah.
Those who know musicianship
Right.
know. If you was just there, you would have been like, "Oh, that was
interesting.
interesting."
Yeah.
Like he was like, and he did it so quick and effortlessly. Seeing him kind of like slide that in during a gospel church service made me realize like there's scales that create feelings, and I didn't recognize that all those scales you can throw it into the mix.
If it fits.
Yeah. And so to even like kind of circle back to that like placement thing, I didn't know when it comes to like composing, right?
Yeah.
Scales have certain kinds of like emotions behind it. Like when they talk about like, oh, minor, major, that's simple. But then we got Mixolydian, Lydian. And I was like, Mixolydian. I'm like, all these different scales, that's what they use for movies. So when you watch a movie and they use those chords to like create these really ethereal moments, and then it just kind of stops and you're like, why did it feel like that? The scales create the emotion. And when you understand how the scales work, you can create a crazy emotion that like, I don't even think most people recognize. I think we're only hitting like a cusp of how crazy music can get.
Oh no, we only have major minor.
We're only on major minor.
No, 100%. Yeah. But we are appreciating a lot of like international music.
Yeah.
A lot in the States, I would say, like, especially in like the indie world of that, you know, like I don't know if you've heard of like Madhu Mokhtar. Yeah, you know what I mean? There's tons of different bands that like are actually getting a lot of like notoriety in the States. They're from like Africa, Egypt, like crazy places, Glass Beams. They're really cool. So yeah, that actually makes me think though. So when going back to the samples, when you're looking for a sample or you're looking for an idea, how do you know that you found it?
I'll just say it like this because I've been doing it for a while. I find that whenever I find something that's really, really speaking to me, it almost like hits me in a way, and like not in like an abrasive way where it's like but like a feeling that I have internally. I feel like this today. Go through the sample. I don't know how to explain this, but this is how I feel today. It matches where you are. And I didn't recognize when people talk about like finding the one or like that it factor, it's the one that connects with that person, that moment, and that time. Like to even for samples, right? Michael Jackson's Rock With You. Yeah. That hit people at a time that's where they were. And so samples, when we looking for samples, when we find that one, it's like, yo, this is we know because it connected with where we were at that moment. There's a feeling connected to it. And even when you play an instrument and you want to sample that little part you did, that feels good to me. I have to keep playing that over and over again, and before you know it, it's on like 5 songs. I'm using the same sample for 5 songs.
I mean, you said that already. Like, I got my pack. Yeah. I'm going to keep using this pack.
Stick to it.
Yeah. So you don't have, I've just finished watching The Bear. Right? Just season 3 of The Bear. You don't have this rule. Love The Bear.
Yeah, it's a good show.
We'll talk about it. Well, season 3 was okay. We'll talk about it. But one of the rules was like no repeat ingredients. You don't have that rule. You use that same lemon pepper over and over again.
Yeah. So, okay, so this is another thing. So the AI.
Okay.
Right? To piggyback off of what you just said, there's this gentleman, I think his name is James Torrey.
Okay.
James Torrey is he was a well-known philosopher. He was a guy that discovered the I'm blanking on the name of the binary code.
Okay.
And how he discovered the binary code is because something in nature talks about how there's a equation that creates patterns in the universe.
Yeah.
And no matter what that equation is, depending on whatever the intention of the thing is, it will create the same pattern, but the thing will be different.
Yeah.
So the same thing that makes stripes on a zebra is what puts spots on a panther.
Exactly.
It's the same equation, but a different result.
Interesting.
The name of the number's on the tip of my tongue too. Go ahead. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And so he I don't know, and they still try to figure out like how in the world did this man come across ones and zeros to be able to create the chip for a computer?
Yeah, that's crazy.
In a time when there wasn't a computer.
Right.
So he
sat with no computer and he created a microchip.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And so like our phones, these microphones, the camera, like he created
Fibonacci numbers.
Yeah.
The Fibonacci spiral with the plants. How
that equation is sitting in everything. And so I remember when I had that epiphany, I was like, is this what words are to creating worlds? And so I'm like, all right, is this the same thing that like the same kind of like thing that makes you feel like a sample is like fire? Is this what creates your style? Is this what creates your ear? Are you prone to listening to a lot of jazz samples, or do you like the weirdness in the jazz samples? Because if you're open to more weirdness in the jazz samples, there's other music out there
with the weird.
Right.
Exactly.
And so like even hearing some like Alchemist, the beat he did with Meet the Grams, right? I remember hearing that joint. I'm like, my my 12-year-old brain feeder Adult Swim kid brain is losing it because this beat is nuts. It doesn't even feel like it lands anywhere. It just kind of like hovers. And I think that's also why a lot of people were terrified of it because it didn't land anywhere. It just
How you felt?
It almost brought me back to like remember Just Blaze?
Yeah, of course.
NBA Street soundtrack.
Yeah.
He would use these gospel screams to like make what he was doing much more. And so hearing Alchemist do that like vocal chop thing and Meet the Grams, I'm like, yo, I'm having a flashback right now. Like I was having, you see the connection with the sampling. That's I like finding those like weird connections, and that's what lets me discover what I want musically, especially when it comes to sampling. And there's no like, I think the moment we limit ourselves to how much an ingredient creates a result, we stop the world it can create.
Right.
Huh.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like that
Very
too.
interesting young man.
I've been doing a lot of like brain stuff lately. This has been like the last like 3 months. I've been trying to break it down.
No, that's
Why?
good, man.
Why? Because like
What happened 3 months and a day ago?
So 3 months and a day ago,
Yeah.
I had this epiphany where I think I was like experiencing something, right? And I was trying to figure out like, well, what am I experiencing? And I had to break it down. It's like, well, I feel like my feelings are real, but are they true? And then that's when I had to like be like, all right, if they're not true, I can go back and change the way I feel. And so I realized that's what comes with changing your mind or opening your mind up to different ideas, because people's feelings can be very, very real. I can feel like around that corner behind you is somebody with an axe.
Ready.
And I'm ready. And I'm like, and I can really be all anxious and, but then like, you can be like, nah, there's nobody back there.
There's a white girl selling lemonade over there.
And then I can look at that and be like, oh, okay. Well, if she's selling lemonade, let me go buy the glass, you know?
Yeah.
And so realize you could do that with everything. That literally could change like how you perceive the world.
It does.
Your perception is reality.
I like that, man. Thanks for going through that and explaining that. I never, it's a very complex question, and getting into like sampling all of that with like listening. I love Alchemist. I love Conductor Williams. I love you. Conductor Williams. Like, I can't get enough of it, honestly. So how would you describe your style of music or your music in general to somebody who had just never heard it before?
So the best way I could put it, because we've been mentioning like Just Blaze, Conductor Williams, Alchemist, Madlib, Dilla, Flying Lotus.
Yeah.
These are all guys that I would like to say they understand not only how sounds work, but they can utilize it to communicate what they want.
Yeah.
And because I come from a musicianship background and my start in beat making wasn't just playing instruments, I was clicking and dragging in samples all the time.
Yep.
I was just, let me find the downbeat here, hit the loop, and then keep it running until I hear something kind of cool that allow me to like maneuver. I try to make my music as if I'm creating a moment, and I want people to experience those moments too.
Yeah.
So like you find a sample, you find that thing that was like really, really
Sticks
good.
out.
I try to play music and make music from that perspective.
Okay, that's a cool way of like presenting what you found. Yeah.
Is there a name to your genre?
Oh God,
Because we get on, man, we've had.
Yeah, I mean,
40 guests, and I've heard 40 genres.
a lot of genres.
I'll say it the best way that Louis Armstrong, because he said it way better than anybody else can. I think Kid Cudi said the same thing. He was like, bro, I just like making really good music. And I don't want anybody to feel like it's sitting in a certain category in order to enjoy it, because I've been recognizing that like people who do hear my music, they're like, it depends on when it hits them. They're like, this is kind of cool. I like this. You know, like even my last project, even personally for me, I didn't even know what I was gonna call like the project in the beginning. But I do know what I was listening to a lot was Steely Dan, and I was revisiting Flying Lotus and Dilla, and I'm like, all right, how can I throw that little composition feel, bluesy kind of structure into what I'm doing? And it's just great sound of music. That's all I can say.
I've been low key into Steely Dan recently.
Steely Dan is
I haven't really explored Steely Dan that much yet.
Blues is my jam.
Yeah,
Man,
get on that.
If you like pre Crazy Kanye,
Okay.
Graduation,
Yeah.
Champion,
Yes.
Kid Charlemagne is the sample for Steely Dan.
Yeah.
And he used the like turnaround to go back into the hook for the song. But when you hear it, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that's the Kanye joint." That's,
Yeah. I love it when that happens.
yeah. And so I didn't recognize that if that one song did it, all his other ones do it too.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize like his engineers and his producers, because the name of the lead singer is Donald Fagen. That's the guy singing. But everybody else is just these crazy musicians. They were like, we're going to get the best musicians in the world to have them play, and we're going to really stretch everybody's ability.
Yeah.
We're going to get 20 solos. 20 solo from everybody. Everybody. What do you mean everybody? And so, yeah, the Asia is a great album to start with because Michael McDonald is singing background on Peg.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting.
I don't love anymore. Yeah. Yeah, those guys, but like even something like that, right? To being able to communicate that, I didn't realize those are the guys that create like the hip hop thing that we know.
Yeah.
They were the originators behind like the gospel chords and the gospel leading to neo soul. And then Prince taking that Minnesota like funk, and then like eventually a bunch of gospel musicians were like, you grew up on Steely Dan? You grew up on this? Why don't we just combine them all together?
Put it all together.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. That leads me to a good question. Do you think, where you from?
I'm from Florida.
You're from Florida?
Yeah.
What part of Florida are you from?
I'm from a city called Lakeland.
Lakeland, Florida?
It's by Tampa, right?
Yeah. Wow. Right in the middle of the state.
Did not expect you to say that. How long have you been in the DMV?
I just got
Yeah, he's just playing the show.
just playing the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, actually, that brings me forward to this question. This is our first out of state guest on this podcast, and everyone has been from the DMV or at least Virginia. So yeah, congratulations.
DC really reminds me of home.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, what parts of home do you think have influenced your music to the same point that you just made about like Prince and his Steely Dan connection and Minnesota funk? Like, what comes out of Lakeland? What's coming out of Central Florida? Now, I graduated high school in Tallahassee, so there is a particular sound from North Florida that I have not heard. Well, maybe we talk about it. I think it might be hyper. It was like really sped up vocals. Really sped up vocals.
We were talking about that.
That's something I have not heard.
On episode 6, the season finale. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
So, like, what's coming out of Central Florida that's like, oh,
man, so there's a lot of so I'll say this. I'll say specifically Tampa, Gainesville, and Orlando. Those 3 cities all have incredible producers that are like taking the hyper pop, but then like going back old school and revisiting classic sounds and making them sound crazier. Okay. There's even like a whole crew of guys that I went to college with. One of those guys, his name is Isaiah Falls.
Okay.
And he had a record recently that like blew up called Florida Baby. But Florida Baby is produced by all the homies that are also in Florida.
Oh, that's dope.
The homie G Blizz, he played on all the gospel stuff. Played for Chris Brown at one point.
Okay.
Icy Red has like the coldest drums in like the Orlando scene.
Sweet.
And as well, Swavey, G Blizz, and another guy named Phil Mango, they all played for Rod Wave.
Oh, wow.
So the tour that Rod Wave did, where he like fell off the they played
250 cars got broken into at the Rod Wave concert in DC.
God, dog,
250 cars, bro.
Yeah, they're out here. My friends are out here.
Man, so like it sounds like you're saying like there's a super musical tradition coming from Central Florida.
Yeah. And it's been there for a while, I think. Like,
Of course.
Even with like a lot of my homies, like, okay, so Joe K for example.
Oh, I love Joe K.
Soul Lection.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize like the Soul Lection crew. A lot of the folks that were part of the crew also used to be in Tampa at one point.
Oh,
And when I found out about Tampa, I was like,
What's going on in Tampa?
I'm going to Tampa.
Yeah.
Didn't know that Ybor City, which is a little bit outside Tampa, is like NoHo in LA.
yeah.
Really?
The talent and creativity.
They be in Ybor?
Yeah.
They just, this it's just the only issue is that folks don't stay long enough to see.
No, because I'm looking
Yeah.
at you that I be in Tampa. My lady from Tampa. We be in Tampa 3-4 times a year.
I'm 30
I
minutes
ain't
away.
never seen shit in Tampa.
Well, you just got to hit me up.
Okay, I'm gonna hit you. You all right? All right. Thank
Yeah, Tampa's been growing. Tampa's been growing a lot. I know in the electronic music scene, everyone's always saying like, "Oh, Denver is like the LA of electronic music." I swear, Tampa is actually with those bigger electronic music shows, all that stuff. I know that's been coming through Tampa like wildfire the past couple
away,
years. Yeah.
Zay Falls was actually part of a lineup, and we were in Ybor City to be exact. And Ybor is not too far from crib. It's like 30 minute drive on the interstate. I ended up getting there, and he was on a lineup of the show, but I didn't realize and I think he recognized after a while that they only had women on the lineup. And his song Florida Baby is really big with women right now. Mm-hmm. And so he got up there, and we recognized how many talented women there are in Tampa, Florida, bro.
I bet, bro.
Yeah.
They had songs, they had choreography, they had outfits, they had a full presentation of a show.
Yeah.
And me and Icy were like, yo, why does this one person remind me of Doechii times 5?
Times 5.
And it's they're taking what Doechii is done and cranking the dial on it. Mm-hmm. And to see that kind of confidence and that kind of creativity in one space, everybody's like, yo, let's just make as many great records as possible.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, y'all. If you get a chance to subscribe, like, download, and follow, we really appreciate it. You can find us on Instagram at the Re-Up, ODCAST. You can also find us on Patreon for exclusive content. New episodes every other Thursday. Thanks for your trust. Appreciate y'all.